Sydney, Australia, a number of outlaw motorcycle gangs have built vast criminal empires, some so wealthy that their members ride gold-plated Harley-Davidsons worth more than most homes. These groups operate with remarkable sophistication, generating hundreds of millions of dollars annually while largely evading law enforcement. Most people picture organized crime as men in suits behind closed doors. In Australia, however, the real power brokers often wear leather jackets and ride six-figure motorcycles. These are not casual riders. They're organized criminals who've turned motorcycle clubs into billion-dollar operations. According to the Australian Crime Commission, 35 outlaw motorcycle gangs are active across the country, but 6 dominate the criminal landscape. The Bandidos, Comancheros, Hells Angels, Finks, Mongols, and Rebels. These 6 groups have around 3,500 full members between them, but their networks and influence extend much further. Each gang operates like a corporation, complete with hierarchies, regional chapters, and business models that rival legitimate enterprises. For example, the Rebels, the largest outlaw motorcycle gang in Australia, have over 2,000 members across 29 chapters. Their founder, former boxer Alex Vela, built an organization that spans multiple countries. The Comancheros, founded in the late 1960s by Scottish immigrant William Jock Ross, run their operations from Western Sydney but have expanded to Europe and the Balkans. Despite having fewer members than some rivals, they maintain strong control through strategic operations and partnerships. The Bandidos operate 45 chapters in Australia with 250 to 400 members and have deliberately recruited from ethnically diverse communities to build a broader and more resilient criminal network. The rise and fall of the Black Oands. Among these powerful gangs, one stood out for years as perhaps the wealthiest and most secretive, the Black Oands Motorcycle Club. Law enforcement once considered them the most dangerous organized crime group in Victoria, and possibly the richest in Australia. While other gangs were known for violence and public displays of power, the Black Oands focused on quiet, long-term profit. For 15 years, they were one of the largest suppliers of illegal amphetamines in Australia. Unlike others, they kept a low profile, enabling them to run a major drug operation across multiple states with limited police interference. The group originated in the 1970s as the Banshees, formed by 10 former motorcycle club members fleeing criminal charges in Queensland. They rebranded and became known for their secretive operations and businesslike approach. But their success didn't last forever. Their decline began with the 2002 disappearance of Sydney Sid Collins, a high-ranking member during a trip to collect a debt in northern NSW. In 2009, notorious criminal Mark Chopper Red confessed to killing Collins in revenge for a past police report. This internal violence, combined with increased law enforcement pressure, weakened the Oands' hold on the underworld. As their influence faded, rival gangs, especially the Comancheros, stepped in to fill the power vacuum. The new era, Comancheros and the evolution of organized crime. The Comancheros capitalized on the Oands' decline by expanding both locally and internationally. Initially involved in amphetamines, they shifted focus to cocaine smuggling, forming partnerships with Middle Eastern crime groups in southeast Sydney. Their international reach now includes Spain and Serbia, enabling cross-border drug trafficking and money laundering. In 2024 alone, New Zealand police seized over $9 million in assets tied to the Comancheros, proving their reach extends well beyond Australia. What sets the modern Comancheros apart is their organizational evolution. Since 2010, an increasing number of crimes linked to motorcycle gangs are not committed by patched members but by non-riding associates with clean records. This creates a protective buffer between leadership and criminal activity. Patched members handle the public image and legitimate business fronts, while associates manage the illicit operations, from drug distribution to laundering. This layered structure makes it extremely difficult for police to prosecute key figures. The Comancheros have also embraced a new generation of recruits, often referred to by police as Nike bikkies, younger individuals who may not even own motorcycles but are drawn to the wealth and lifestyle. These recruits focus on financial operations rather than traditional gang violence. The legal system, a weak defense. The legal system in Australia has struggled to keep pace with these evolving criminal networks. In one high-profile case in 2010, Hells Angels member Derek Wainohu successfully sued the New South Wales government, receiving $300,000 in legal fees. A stark example of how tough-sounding laws often fail under legal scrutiny. Some territories, like the ACT, have refused to implement anti-association laws. As a result, cities like Canberra have become safe zones for gang gatherings, forcing police to monitor events without being able to act. In 2024 to 2025, more than $400,000 in taxpayer money was spent overseeing such gatherings. The construction industry connection. One of the most alarming revelations is the extent to which outlaw motorcycle gangs have infiltrated Australia's construction sector, particularly public infrastructure projects. Through unions such as the Construction, Forestry, Maritime, Mining and Energy Union, CFMMEU, gang members have secured roles as union delegates, collecting large paychecks for work they often don't perform. On the Westgate Tunnel project, a 2025 investigation found that 15% of workers on payroll were fictitious, costing taxpayers $14 million over 2 years. Individuals like Mark the Blade Smith, a known Rebels affiliate, were found to be collecting $3,000 per week for no-show jobs. Meanwhile, Mick Gatto, a well-known fixer, has been accused of extorting subcontractors, while his accountant, Charles Polino, helped funnel millions through shell companies tied to state-funded projects like Melbourne's Metro Tunnel. In March 2025, Australian Federal Police raided Polino's offices, uncovering evidence directly linking construction funds to outlaw motorcycle gang members operating as union delegates. Outlaw motorcycle gangs in Australia have evolved into complex multinational criminal networks. Their operations now span from drug trafficking and money laundering to exploiting the legal system and siphoning funds from public infrastructure projects. While some, like the Black Oands, have declined due to violence and law enforcement pressure, others, particularly the Comancheros, have adapted and expanded with alarming success. These are not the gangs of old, they are modern criminal enterprises, and they are hiding in plain sight. Not small-time crime, organized corruption on a national scale. This is not minor corruption. It's systematic theft of public funds on an industrial level. Take Joel Johnny Two Guns Walker as an example. A convicted Rebels enforcer with a manslaughter record, he was appointed as a health and safety representative on the Footscray Hospital redevelopment project, but his actual role had little to do with enforcing safety. His real job was to pressure subcontractors into making payments to Mick Gatto's criminal network. The effectiveness of this scheme lies in how difficult it is to prosecute. The money flows through legal union and government channels, making it extremely hard for investigators to prove criminal intent. By the time fraud is uncovered, the proceeds are already laundered, moved offshore, or reinvested into legitimate businesses. This infiltration of the construction industry has become a reliable source of legal income for outlaw motorcycle gangs, supplementing their traditional criminal operations. It's large-scale money laundering, with public funding often unknowingly supporting it. A global criminal network. Australia's wealthiest motorcycle gangs now operate global criminal networks that function like multinational corporations. The Comancheros, in particular, lead this approach. They have partnered with Middle Eastern organized crime groups in Sydney, combining international drug sourcing with local distribution and enforcement. These partnerships have led to expansion into Spain and Serbia, with direct ties to South American cartels. In Spain, Comanchero operations are now considered a major national security concern, particularly for trafficking Colombian cocaine into Europe. The Serbian connection provides weapons and logistical support, drawn from one of Europe's most violent underworlds. In September 2024, New Zealand police arrested 41 Comanchero members and seized over $9 million in assets. But this was only a glimpse into the group's true scale. That same operation uncovered a system where drug profits were laundered to fund military-style training, including instruction by a former U.S. Marine. One New Zealand chapter alone moved $15 million in drugs. When multiplied across their global network, the scale of wealth becomes difficult to measure. How they stay untouchable. What makes today's outlaw motorcycle gangs truly powerful isn't just their crimes. It's how they protect their wealth and avoid prosecution. These organizations understand the difference between personal property and organizational assets. Law enforcement may seize clubhouses or vehicles, but properly laundered money held through offshore companies and legitimate businesses is much harder to reach, even after large-scale operations like the Australian Federal Police's 2024 crackdown, which led to 126 arrests and $23 million in asset seizures. Officials acknowledged they had only scratched the surface. The gangs use complex financial setups involving shell companies, often registered in jurisdictions with strict banking secrecy laws, to move money in ways that break traditional paper trails. Real estate has become a key tool in storing wealth. Properties are bought through trusts and corporate entities, creating layers of legal protection. Even if authorities trace the money back to criminal activity, seizing such assets is legally difficult and time-consuming, and often fails. The Comancheros have mastered this method. While public attention focuses on their image, motorcycles, clubhouses, and leather jackets, the real money is tied up in legal investments and corporate structures, institutional weaknesses, and corruption. Perhaps the most troubling aspect isn't the gang's power. It's how they've revealed deep flaws in Australia's institutions. In 2015, former Victoria Police Detective Peter Dutton warned about gang infiltration of unions. His concerns were dismissed. By 2025, those warnings proved accurate. The 2022 closure of the Australian Building and Construction Commission left a gap in oversight. Its replacement agency lacks the capacity to investigate large-scale fraud. As a result, gang-related construction disputes rose by 40% shortly afterward. Police tactics haven't evolved to meet this new challenge. They're designed for old-style criminal hierarchies, but today's gangs use decentralized networks of associates and legitimate business fronts, making detection difficult. Tough-sounding laws often fail in court. For example, Queensland's 2013 gang ban had to be softened after legal challenges. Today, gang members remain technically legal, while continuing their operations through legal loopholes. Intelligence failures. Australia's crime-fighting strategies rely heavily on intelligence gathering, but motorcycle gangs have stayed ahead of these efforts. The Australian Criminal Intelligence Commission, ACIC, officially lists 35 outlaw motorcycle gangs, with around 3,500 patched members. However, this underrepresents the full scale of the threat. For every visible member, there may be 10 or more associates who don't wear colors but perform essential roles. Lawyers, accountants, business people, and even government employees. This shadow network is largely invisible to intelligence databases. Even high-profile operations have had limited effect. The 2024 New Zealand operation against the Comancheros impacted only a single chapter. Meanwhile, the group's Australian and international operations remained active, with new leaders quickly replacing any arrested figures. These gangs operate like franchises, independent chapters with semi-autonomous leadership. Disrupting one doesn't affect the others. Law enforcement's reliance on traditional metrics, like arrests or patch counts, fails to capture the financial sophistication of these groups, the empire that can't be stopped. It's now clear that Australia's top motorcycle gangs have built criminal empires that are nearly impossible to dismantle. They operate across two worlds, the criminal underworld and the legitimate economy. Their income is diverse: quick cash from drug trafficking, reliable revenue from construction fraud, and long-term stability through international networks and investments. While the Black Oands once held the title of Australia's richest gang through their 15-year drug empire, groups like the Comancheros have taken things further. Their model blends criminal activity with financial and legal strategy, allowing them to stay ahead of law enforcement. Their most powerful weapon isn't violence, it's adaptability. Each time authorities develop new tools or strategies, these gangs evolve to neutralize them. When drug sales became riskier, they turned to public infrastructure projects to generate wealth legally. Their international expansion creates extra layers of protection. Even if police dismantled every domestic operation, offshore assets and partners would allow rapid rebuilding. The Comancheros alone likely control hundreds of millions of dollars in assets across various countries. Their annual revenues could exceed those of small national economies. Looking ahead, the future of organized crime. Unless Australia changes its approach to organized crime, these networks will continue growing in wealth and influence. Current strategies focus too much on individual arrests and asset seizures. They fail to address the systemic vulnerabilities that allow these organizations to flourish. The gangs, however, have already adapted. They're diversifying, investing in legitimate industries, and planning further expansion. Construction is just one sector. Similar strategies are likely being applied in other industries, with public contracts and regulatory weaknesses. Their presence in countries like Spain and Serbia is not just about drug routes. It's about establishing legitimate business operations in jurisdictions with looser oversight. Technology is another area of growth. Tools like cryptocurrency and digital banking allow fast, discrete transfers of funds. While this creates new risks, these organizations combine modern tech with traditional criminal methods, making them even harder to track. Most concerning is their understanding of political optics. Gangs know that police and politicians need public wins, so they allow small victories while protecting the core of their operations. Conclusion: a hidden empire. This report set out to explain why police can't stop Australia's richest motorcycle gang. The answer is more complex and more troubling than any single explanation. While the Black Oands once held the title, today's landscape is dominated by organizations like the Comancheros and rebels, which have transcended the traditional definition of a gang. They've exploited gaps in the legal, political, and economic systems. Their wealth is not in motorcycles or clubhouses, but in offshore accounts, legitimate investments, and government contracts. Some estimates suggest the combined value of gang assets exceeds $1 billion, though the true figure is likely far higher. Arrests make headlines, but the core financial engine continues running. Current law enforcement approaches are outdated, These criminal organizations have evolved, and so must the systems trying to stop them. The true empire isn't built on bikes and patches. It's built on money, influence, and institutional failure.